Hello, U9, and welcome to the third exciting instalment of 4 of the chapters that are part of organisation. So far we have covered principles of organisation, the digestive system, enzymes, heart and blood vessels, blood, coronary heart disease. Today we're going to be looking at health issues, the effects of lifestyle on some non-communicable diseases, and cancer. And then in tomorrow's lesson, we're going to be looking at the plant tissues, organs, and systems. Now, in this one, like not yesterday's one, Friday's one, it is going to be a big chunk of the revision, and then there will be questions after that we'll go through the answers for. So we're going to start with health issues, and an organisation called the World Health Organization, or the WHO, is a big global organisation that do a lot of work with health across the world, and they define health as a complete physical, mental and social well-being. So it's not just to do with diseases, but also your mental well-being and your social well-being. We can split diseases into 2 different groups. We have communicable diseases, which spread from organism to organism, be it human to human or plant to plant or other animals to other animals. And we have the non-communicable diseases, which are not caused by infection. So heart disease, such as cardiovascular disease, coronary heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's and asthma, all of those you can't catch. They don't spread from one organism to another. Having said that, some diseases can be an interaction of the two. So, for instance, if you have got a defective immune system caused by a non-communicable disease, or something that you are born with, it will mean that you're more likely to get the communicable diseases, the infectious diseases. There's some viruses, which would be under the communicable diseases, that can trigger cancers to form. So the HPV virus, for instance, which girls are now vaccinated for in the UK, can trigger cervical cancer. Also, we have things like immune reactions. So it could be caused by a pathogen, but then that can start causing allergies, such as skin rashes, and also asthma. So again, we've got communicable and non-communicable interacting together. Also, having severe physical ill health can lead to things like depression and mental illness, which again is interacting together. So if you could pause the video. From this, we need to know what health is, a definition of health, the 2 different types of diseases, and a couple of examples of how sometimes different types of disease interact with each other. So pause the video and do that now, please. Okay, so next up is we are looking at the impact of non-communicable diseases. And this will be something that you might be asked about in your exam. We need to know the effect on the human. We also need to know financial costs for the individual, for local communities, nationally and globally. Okay, so quite often that might be, or quite a good link to make is with the NHS. The more non-communicable diseases there are, the bigger the cost to the NHS, which means that taxes go up to pay for that. Now, there's some data on the left-hand side from the WHO, which you can access if you go online, and it gives some information about non-communicable diseases. So they kill about 40 million people each year, which is about 70% of all deaths globally. So it's not caused, the biggest chunk aren't caused by the communicable diseases, because there's been a lot of work into vaccinations and treating those kind of diseases. The majority are caused by non-communicable diseases. Each year, 15 million people die from non-communicable diseases between the ages of 30 and 69. So over 80% of these premature deaths occur in low and middle income countries. So that's just showing that there is a big chunk of what we would consider young people. I know obviously you're considerably younger, but 30 to 69 isn't old, and 80% of these premature deaths will happen in low and middle income countries. Cardiovascular diseases account for most of the non-communicable disease deaths. So 17.7 million people annually, and then followed by the next biggest one, which is cancer, which is only 8.8 million, and then respiratory diseases, which is 3.9, and then diabetes at 1.6. So from that, you can see that cardiovascular diseases are the biggest killer out of the non-communicable diseases, and as we've said before, the non-communicable diseases are the biggest killers out of all of them. Now, how does it affect humans? Obviously, there is a big cost on human life. You've got might have a lower quality of life, so you can't do the things that you used to be able to do. You might be confined to your home, things like that. Shorter lifespan. Obviously, it has an effect on families because they might end up caring for you. And also, there is human cost of a partner or parental deaths. As I mentioned before, financial costs. All of the treatment for these diseases is done in this country by the NHS, which is a fantastic institution, but is not free. So there is a cost to healthcare. Obviously, there's lots of money that is put into researching the diseases, treating it, awareness campaigns. So there's a lot of adverts about stopping smoking or obesity and things like that. There might be reduced income if you're unable to work or do previous jobs that you had. Personal care costs, so if you're having to get somebody to come in, a carer to come in, that will cost money. If you have to adapt your home, so getting specialist equipment, that will obviously come at a cost as well. Also, if many people are unable to work, then that has an effect on the economy, which we're seeing at the moment with so many people who are not working. So from this, what do we need to know? We need to know that non-communicable diseases cause significant amounts of death, with the cardiovascular diseases being the highest. We also need to know some of the human and financial costs implicated with non-communicable diseases. So if you could add some notes on that into your revision, then that would be great. So pause the video and do that now, please. Right, next up, the effects of lifestyle on non-communicable diseases. So this is how our lifestyle choices will have an effect on our risk of getting some of these non-communicable diseases. So big ones are things like lack of exercise, stress levels, exposure to too much sunlight, so if you're not wearing sun cream, and exposure to ionizing radiation. So those are things that people might have in their lifestyle that would increase your risk of non-communicable diseases. Also, there is risk factors involved in things that we're putting inside our body. So if you have got a poor diet that's high in fat and sugar, then that will increase your risk of certain non-communicable diseases. Cigarette smoke and alcohol, all of those we're putting into our body, or some people put into their body, that will have increase your risk factor. Also, the environment around you. So places like London will have much worse air pollution. That can cause non-communicable diseases. If there is asbestos in homes, or if you're around ionizing radiation. All of those are called risk factors. So you have your hazard, such as cigarette smoke. That is a risk factor, so it increases your risk of harm. So for smoking, for instance, it will increase your risk to lung cancer or lung diseases. Quite often, these non-communicable diseases will be a combination of several factors, so it's not always going to be one. But some of them, like cigarette smoke, will significantly increase your risk of diseases all on its own. So from that, what do we need to know? We need to know some of the risk factors that are involved and what a risk factor actually is. So if we could pause the video and add some sentences to our revision notes on lifestyle risk factors. Okay, moving on then. So the next one is causes of non-communicable disease. So we've just spoken about the risk factors. Now we're going to go into a little bit more depth and link them to certain diseases. So we're going to start with cardiovascular disease, that big killer globally, accounting for a large number of deaths across the world. So there's several risk factors to cardiovascular diseases. First one is diet. So if you have high levels of saturated fats in your diet, then that will increase your LDLs. You don't need to know LDLs, but it's the bad cholesterol that, as we've looked at in the previous lesson, will build up in your coronary arteries and cause coronary heart diseases. Another risk factor of cardiovascular disease is smoking. So tobacco smoke damages the lining of the arteries, which causes a fatty buildup on those coronary arteries. Also, the carbon monoxide that is inside the cigarette smoke reduces the amount of oxygen in your blood, so that means your heart needs to pump harder. That also increases your chance of that atherosclerosis, that build-up of the fatty material. Nicotine as well is a stimulant, so that causes your heartbeat to increase, raising your blood pressure, again causing that fatty build-up. Another risk factor is lack of exercise. So those that exercise regularly will have lower blood pressure, lower stress levels, so they have less of a risk of getting cardiovascular diseases. So if we could pause this video and if we could add about the risk factors associated with cardiovascular disease. Okay, next one. So now we're going to be looking at the link between obesity and type 2 diabetes. So type 2 diabetes is where the cells in the body don't react to insulin as well as they used to. So it means that you can't control that blood glucose levels, which is different to type 1 diabetes. Obesity increases the risk factor of getting type 2 diabetes because if you have more fat around your abdomen or your tummy, it increases your risk of type 2 diabetes. Another group of diseases, we've got the liver diseases and brain damage. Alcohol is a risk factor for each of those. So the toxins in alcohol will cause fatty buildup in your liver, causing cirrhosis. That is if you're drinking too much alcohol because the liver is there to get rid of those poisons, those toxins. Also, alcohol can cause brain function damage. So if you drink too much alcohol, it affects the nerve cells in the brain and the cells then become damaged. So it actually causes your brain mass to shrink, which is brain damage. So can we pause the video? And if we could add about the risk factor, which is obesity for type 2 diabetes, and also how alcohol is a risk factor for liver disease and brain damage. Okay, so moving on. So the next bit that we're going to be looking at is COPD. Now, this is a abbreviation for a group of lung diseases. So it makes it a lot harder for people to breathe. Therefore, they're not moving as much air in and out of the lungs. So a couple of examples that are good to know about is bronchitis, and that's the inflammation of the bronchi and the bronchioles, where you're producing too much mucus. That will obviously reduce the amount of air that can get in. And another one is emphysema, which affects the alveoli, where it breaks down the walls, and therefore less oxygen can diffuse across into your blood. Now, smoking is a big risk factor for COPD. So smoking is the biggest risk factor, in fact, of COPD. 9 out of 10 cases of COPD are caused by smoking, and it's that damage that it causes to the bronchi and the alveoli that causes that. So what I'd like you to do now is pause the video, and if you could put about how smoking is a risk factor for lung disease such as COPD. Okay, so another disease that is caused by smoking is lung cancer. So we can add this on to the previous revision one. So lung cancer is one of the most common and serious types of cancer. Around 44,500 people are diagnosed in the UK each year, so a large amount of people. Symptoms include persistent cough, frequent chest infections, and coughing up blood and breathlessness. Most of the cases are linked with smoking, so 85% of people with lung cancer, the cause is because of smoking. And that's because tobacco contains 60 toxic chemicals, and some of them are known carcinogens. So the carcinogens are chemicals or substances that cause cancer. If you smoke more than 25 cigarettes a day, you're 25 times more likely to get lung cancer than a non-smoker. So some people who have never smoked can get lung cancer, but most of the time it's because of smoking. So if we could pause the video now, please, and if we could add to the previous bit and including lung cancer as a disease that has a risk factor of smoking. Okay, next we're going to look at some of the other effects of smoking and alcohol, and we're going to be looking at the effect on unborn babies. So because tobacco contains so many different chemicals, including carbon dioxide, it reduces the amount of oxygen that's available to the unborn baby. That will quite often cause reduced size of the infant, increases the risk of miscarriage or premature births, and also sudden infant death syndrome, or SIDS. So if you smoke during pregnancy, you are increasing the risk of those things. Another thing that is commonly told not to do whilst pregnant is drinking alcohol. Now, there isn't a known amount of alcohol that is safe to drink, so the advice is just not to drink any alcohol at all now. It used to be, I think, 1 glass a day, for instance, of wine, but now it is just do not drink if you are pregnant. If you drink lots of alcohol in the first 3 months of pregnancy, it increases your risk of miscarriage and premature births. Heavy drinking throughout your pregnancy can lead to something called fetal alcohol syndrome. And this is where a child is born with poor growth, facial abnormalities, and learning difficulties. So those are the risks involved with drinking during pregnancy. So if we could add those to our revision notes, some of the other effects of smoking and alcohol. Okay, so the last bit of risk factors is looking at carcinogens. And carcinogens, as I say, is a substance that increases your risk of cancer. So some ones that we've spoken about, things like tobacco contains carcinogens. So that means that you're more likely to get cancers, not only of the lungs, but also the esophagus, the larynx or the voice box, mouth cancers, throat cancer, kidney, bladder, pancreas, stomach, and cervical cancer as well. Alcohol is also a carcinogen, and that increases your risk factor of mouth cancer, again, voice box cancer, esophagus cancer, liver cancer, and breast cancer. Sometimes we come across carcinogens in our everyday working environment, and these are called occupational carcinogens. And there's over 40 known carcinogens that are linked with the work environment. So it's all about making sure that workers don't get too exposed to them. One that is quite a famous one is asbestos. That causes lung cancer. It used to be used in a lot of buildings before they knew the damage to it. It was also used to make lots of things inside the house, but now they know that it is a big risk factor of lung cancer, so it's removed and it's not used anymore in building. The last group of carcinogens are the ionizing radiations, and these are ones that affect the electrons on your DNA, and so that causes mutation and then will lead to cancer. Common ones that you've probably heard of: ultraviolet light, so that's why it's important to wear sunscreen if you're going out in the sun. Also X-rays, radon gas, which is all around us, and radiation in medical treatments. So they use gamma radiation to treat cancers and things like that. So if we could pause the video and pop down some carcinogens and what it is that they can cause. You do not need to list all of the different cancers that tobacco and alcohol cause. Just being aware of them will be sufficient. Right, so we've spoken about the risk factors involved in non-communicable diseases. We've looked at how carcinogens can cause cancer. Now we're going to be looking at cancer. Not all tumours are classed as cancerous. So if you have a lump that wasn't there before, it doesn't automatically mean it's going to be cancer. It might just be a benign tumour. So tumours, two types of tumours. We have benign tumours and malignant tumours. And malignant tumours are the ones that we refer to as cancer. Now, benign tumours is just the abnormal division of cells and abnormal growths of cells, but it's contained in one area. Now, sometimes that can press up against an organ or press up against some tissues that will have an effect on you, but they can be removed because they're in one part and there's no danger that they're going to reoccur somewhere else. Malignant cancer, the dangerous, malignant tumour, which we refer to as cancer, is the dangerous one. So this again is the abnormal growth and division of the cells, but in this one, they can spread around the body, so they can invade neighbouring tissues, and also they can travel around in the blood to different parts of the body, and they cause secondary tumours. So this is the dangerous one, because it can move around and cause tumours around your body. So if we could pause the video, please, and if we could put about the two types of tumours, making sure that we emphasise that the malignant tumours are the ones we refer to as cancers. Okay, so that is it. So quite a lot. Do appreciate that to take in on health issues and the risk factors involved in diseases and cancer. So now we're going to go through some questions to see how much we have retained. So if you could cover up any of your revision notes, a fresh piece of paper to answer your questions on. Right, first set of questions. Number 1, define the word health. So what is health? 2, what are communicable diseases? And 3, what are non-communicable diseases? Number 4, name 4 ways that different types of disease can interact to make a person ill. Number 5, list some human costs of non-communicable diseases. So what is going to cost money if somebody has a non-communicable disease? Number 6, list some financial costs of non-communicable diseases. Number 7, name 2 other risk factors that affect your health. Number 8, what are the risk factors for cardiovascular disease? And number 9, what is the risk factor of type 2 diabetes? So if you could pause the video and answer those 9 questions, please. Okay, so moving on to the next batch of questions. Question 10, how does alcohol cause liver disease? Number 11, what does alcohol damage in the brain? Number 12, what are COPDs? Number 13, give 2 examples of COPD. Number 14, what is the main cause of COPD? Number 15, what is the biggest risk factor for lung cancer? Number 16, what are the symptoms of lung cancer? Number 17, what are the risks of smoking while pregnant? 18, what is the risk of heavy drinking throughout your pregnancy? Number 19, what is a carcinogen? So if you could pause the video and answer those questions, please. Right. We've got 6 more questions, and then we're going to go over the answers. So question 20 is, how can carcinogens cause cancer? Number 21, name 4 types of carcinogens. Number 22, what is a tumour? 23, what are benign tumours? 24, what are malignant tumours? And finally, 25, which type of tumour is cancerous? So if we could pause the video and answer those 6 questions, please. Okay, so we're going to go through the answers now. So grab something to mark with. Any, as I've said in the previous ones, any that you are getting wrong, make sure that you are adding that to your revision notes in the relevant section as we go along. So question number 1, what is health? Is the state of physical and mental well-being. Number 2, what are communicable diseases? They are infectious diseases caused by pathogens. Number 3, what are non-communicable diseases? They're diseases not caused by infections, so they don't go from organism to organism. Number 4, a tricky one to remember all 4 of these, I think. Name 4 ways that different types of disease can interact to make a person ill. So if there is defects in the immune system, viruses triggering cancer, immune reactions, and poor physical health. Number 5, what are the human costs of communicable diseases? Less quality of life, shorter lifespan are the big ones. Number 6, financial costs. So you've got healthcare costs, reduction in your income, and having to buy things like specialist equipment. Number 7, name 2 other risk factors that affect health, lifestyle, and substances taken into the body. Number 8, what are the risk factors for cardiovascular disease? It's diet, smoking, and a lack of exercise. Number 9, what is a risk factor for type 2 diabetes? Obesity. Number 10, how does alcohol cause liver disease? So it causes the liver to become fatty, which leads to cirrhosis. Number 11, what does alcohol damage in the brain? It damages the nerve cells. Number 12, what is COPD? It's lung diseases where the airways are narrowed. Number 13, two examples of COPDs, bronchitis and emphysema. Number 14, what is the main cause of COPD? Smoking. Number 15, what is the biggest risk factor for lung cancer? Smoking. Number 16, what are the symptoms of lung cancer? So you could have things like persistent cough, lots of chest infections, coughing up blood and breathlessness. Number 17, what are the risks of smoking while pregnant? Miscarriage, premature birth, and sudden infant death syndrome. Number 18, what is the risk of heavy drinking? Fetal alcohol syndrome. And number 19, what is a carcinogen? It's a substance that causes cancer, that can cause cancer, And the last one's number 20, how can carcinogens cause cancer? They damage DNA, which causes mutations. 21, 4 types of carcinogens: tobacco, alcohol, occupational carcinogens, and ionizing radiation. Number 22, what is a tumour? Is the uncontrolled cell division and cell growth, or abnormal cell division and cell growth. 23, what are benign tumours? So it's abnormal growth of a cell contained in one area, whereas malignant tumours for 24 is abnormal growth of cells that can spread around the body. And finally, number 25, which type of tumour is cancerous? It's the malignant tumours. Okay, so very well done. That was a lot to take in and then do on those that lesson. So well done for getting that down. Please, as I keep saying, make sure that you keep these revision notes or pages or cards, whatever it is that you're using, to help you revise throughout your time, and then obviously before your actual GCSEs in year 11. We have one more part to organisation, which we will do tomorrow. And then I'm going to be giving you some past paper questions to have a go at yourselves. And then we'll go over those answers as a walking, talking mock. Hope you're all well and taking care of yourselves and not missing school too much. And you will hear from me tomorrow. Thank you very much. Take care and goodbye.